Hello there. And Melk. Joe and Melk, welcome guys, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, friend.
I hope you can hear me. Joe, thanks for accepting the invite in there. And I'm in this awesome place in New York. Let me show you. Really awesome. Like it's like a rooftop in the take off this thing from here. How the heck? Okay, here we go. None. Okay, so 5th floor behind, brutal rooftop in the next one, center of Broadway.
Wonderful.
Phenomenal.
And I cannot hear you. That's why I'm a bit concerned. Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So this is Broadway is over there. There is a region called Nomad now. And it's essentially where everyone that works around the world, well, it kind of pops up to do things. And it's really, really cool. Last week we were with a couple of other people at the rooftop in here. So really nice. So if you ever pop up into New York, I think I'll do this weekly. But I know Melk from Astra. I know Joe. We just met on LinkedIn. Melk is a fantastic guy. He has great ideas for space development and curiously things that have to do with infrastructure. So
Awesome.
I think he cannot speak of a lot of things, but he can speak of a lot of them. So Joe, can you introduce yourself just quickly? And then I can.
Indeed. Hey, I live in Missouri, down in the southwest part of Missouri, Springfield area. And I am a student at the University of Phoenix for the future of space infrastructure development. I'm trying to move to a place with a little bit better signal.
Okay.
I'm in my office, so let's go out here. There, a little bit better signal. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Joe, can you explain a bit more what you are looking for in infrastructure? Because I know a couple of people that have been working in infrastructure. So that's besides Gordon.
Yeah. So my interest, I'm a logistics specialist by trade, and I am looking at the international infrastructure pathway across the space industry is not cohesive. There is no defined consensus. The ESA has come up with a little bit of a pathway, but that development pathway is not cohesive. So it appears that, as Dr. Galosh, one of my other connections, said, it appears that the space industry is throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And that's not going to become a sustainable pathway toward actually achieving the goals that we need for humanity to maintain space. So I'm looking at development pathways for air, fuel, water. How do you get and keep humans and satellites in space? Where do we go from here, and how do we get there? The study that I'm going to perform is a Delphi type study with a panel of experts in the industry to basically nail down what that international consensus looks like. What innovation pathways should we pursue first? And I recognize Scrum and Agile is all about, broadening innovation and allowing it to accelerate, right? But we also need to accelerate in a direction that makes sense. One of my former proteges had a great tendency to accelerate 100 miles an hour in any direction, and he needed a little bit of direction. So I hope that I can provide some of that focus for the international community.
Right. Okay. So you also have Bas Robert is from another place in the world, from Europe, Zurich, I believe. If I'm wrong, let me know, Bas. But this guy has he mines. Bas, man, don't let me get it wrong. Iridium.
Hey, thank
correct?
you. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for having me invited, Gonzalo. It's great. It's a great conversation. I'm not a propulsion engineer or but I'm a huge enthusiast, so I'm really happy to be a part of it, and I'm listening carefully. So my thing is end-to-end supply chain solutions for critical minerals like iridium, platinum in the framework of the energy transition for fuel cells. And that's our thing. There we were starting supply chain end to end. And as I explained, iridium is a very good solution to build fuel cells, because iridium is has very good catalytic properties and very resistant. And I'm not in space, but we're on Earth. But hydrogen,
the
is very important.
The question that I'm
on planet,
of course. But you dig stuff, correct? You mine stuff. You have a thing that does things. Is that correct?
We have operational mining and we produce it. That's correct. It's very small. It's very small, but we have found it successfully, and hopefully we will soon be able to offer a catalytic product to the market. And I have to say, we navigate with small funding, yeah. And my key strategy is utility value. So I try every day to make the best decision, yeah, with this small money I have, to get the greatest utility value out of my action, yeah. And I have to say we are successful, and we have found it, and now we start to build up the production and the supply chain. As I told, it's end to end. So yeah, I'm happy to be successful, and it's great. And I do see the usage of fuel cells in space when you have hydrogen is very important, and that's gonna be my path to space. But
great. Let's ask Melk to Melk. Come on, give me your 3-minute speech, man. I already know you, and we talked.
Yeah,
about the folks not know you.
Absolutely. My name is Melk Cattell. I am presently the sales development rep here at Astra. I primarily deal in launch services for both our federal and commercial customers. I had previously worked with Gonzalo when he was here at Astra. He helped me through a few mission solutions that we have been planning. One of my tasks here and interests is coming up with integration solutions for all sorts of problems of getting to space and sustaining in space, both on the military and civil side. So I've had to go in and out of that quite a few times in my 9 months here at Astra.
Okay, so I want to get this started. I've shared with you guys a link to the let me share my screen to tell you how does this can work. It's not mandatory, just a suggestion. Okay, I've been working with a person called Joe Justice that worked 10 or 12 years in Tesla and SpaceX, and he kind of found out how these guys work. That is, how does Tesla and SpaceX works to innovate faster. And he built up a book called Scrum Master, and I purposely called it Space Scrum Master, because at the same time that I'll introduce the concepts of each one of the blocks that comes from him, I'll also introduce some of the things that I'm doing, in particular for a project that I have going. I have the privilege or not, or that I'm building this thing. You see the thing in here? You see this thing over here? It's something that we are trying to be. I'm going to say we are designing it to go to the first phase of the challenge, the NASA Space Challenge competition. And then after that, if NASA says yes, we'll build it. Well, NASA will say yes, but we'll build it and then looking out for funding and then taking it to the moon. So definitely picking up on launch services, mission design, obviously then end-to-end supply chains, and clearly infrastructure after we start mining any kind of the REs. So the model that you've got in here. So I got this one in here. You should have received the link to the file. Man, if you guys have, I hope you have a link to to something like this, to something like, it's called the Figma board. I hope I don't, yeah, okay, here we go. And in here, so this was the other session. Thank you. So essentially it was how do we form teams, and there were many questions that I later would get back to Joe Justice and to give some clarification if you guys want to use his methods. His methods are really beyond belief. So if it works for SpaceX and Tesla, probably. And the whole idea is that you put in here your name, use the Figma board in here, I'm putting here my name, Goncalo, and anytime as we play out the video, we stop every like 7 to 10 minutes and we put our stuff in here. That's it. So that I can later go back to Joe Justice or to my sources in the Lean and Agile community and the space community. And hopefully I can educate, I think the word is too strong, but tell you what I'm working on for in the dust mitigation. And at Melk, this could come in handy because many of the literature in here, and I'll point you out for a set of key resources, both from NASA or from LSIC, that allows us to understand what are the key things. But right now I can tell you that this is where I am, okay? This is for anything that is outside of the control, non-human, but I'm building up, regarding dust, we are working on this problem, but if this is for environmental control and life support systems, we've got much more stuff. And in here, something that is the NASA qualification process, man, and I found this very powerful. I got the sources in here if you guys later want to see. I think for Joe, what will be interesting is the overall concept of having steps defined. But so what I would like is, as we watch Joe's video, that you guys put in here, this doesn't work for me. If you don't want to put your name, it's fine. Just a suggestion. You guys work in companies that do space, so put, I don't know, I can call myself Bunny, you guys can call yourself, I don't know, astronaut. But the whole idea is to collect ideas that would be needed to clarify the content of the book. Does that make sense? Okay. Yep. Joe and Russ, so I need to restart the sharing because I need to share the sound if you guys want to later to see. So I'm gonna put Joe talking and I'm gonna interrupt as I think it's needed, okay? And I'll take you also to start listening to Joe with 1 time, 1.2, 1.5, 1.7, 2 times, and put our brains working fast.
It's a large company. What would be the outcome? What's the goal? What is the goal of trying to do great agile business? Scrum is touted in business.
I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share it again. This is, okay, so where is the source of? Make sure that the sound is okay. Yeah. Speakers.
Is there any case where it's not good to be faster?
There we go.
And I'll try to answer.
Okay, so guys, so I'm gonna take you to the journey. Be quick and fast, okay? Here we go.
Wait states with a rapid decision-making structure such as Scrum. In addition, the inspect and adapt cycle provides a regular cadence of continuous improvement to amplify this effect. But when is speed not desirable? It is important to apply a tool where it will generate the most value. Okay, so what we're going to do next is say, is there any case where it's not good to be faster? And I'll try to analyze that. Before that, I do want to say, Elon Musk, when I was working at Tesla, many times said, pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. And right now, as I'm recording this book, Tesla, for one of the 5 Musk companies, is as valuable, according to market cap, as all other automotive companies added together. That's how radically disruptive this is. And it's only speed.
Okay, so lots of stuff in there in the first minutes. Inspect and adapt cycle, speed of innovation, when does it matter, and what are the parts of process that you need to speed up and the others want that done. So if you guys want to put some comments in there, for me it was like, okay, got it. And also the comment on speed of innovation is the most important thing, and both for infrastructure, also for mining, it's that ability to to produce prototypes. Any comments you guys can put in there? I kind of placed the speed on too much, but you'll see as you adapt that you can go up to the 2 times listening a person.
Speed of innovation is Musk's entire driver. So Musk isn't an agilist. He's not hiring people because they have Scrum credentials. Musk is looking for anyone and any method that increases the number of iterations and increases the amount of improvement in innovation per iteration. So Agile methods are perfect for that. And I fit perfectly operating Agile at Tesla. So I'll say that's the goal, is increasing the pace of innovation. Now, let's say, where is speed not a good idea? Let's think of 2 scenarios: a convenience store in a high traffic area and a Japanese onsen or soaking tub in a landscaped private sanctuary. In the convenience store, speed of the overall experience is important to the customer and the business. As mentioned, this is a high traffic area, and the faster a customer moves through the store, the faster the next customer may move through the store. The faster the customer finds what they're hoping to find, is exposed to additional opportunities that may be valuable to them, and faster the purchase is completed, is a net positive for the customer and the business. Let's think about the soaking bath, the onsen. Losing track of time, turning inward into the private garden surroundings, feeling the ripples of the water from the slightest wiggle of your toes. These are some of the reasons that customers choose this experience. Here, prolonging a sense of time, a kairos, or expansive sense of time over a chronos or linear sense of time, is highly valuable. But what about cleaning the onsen after a spill? How long does the customer and the business want that to take? What about repairs or correction of a problem or disruption? What about response time to a rowdy, loud, or even dangerous customer? In these cases, speed is still the advantage to the customer and the business, but with the goal of speed to restore the almost timeless sense of tranquility. We will propose that speed is the positive asset for all companies to achieve what they wish, and is always an advantage, even if speed is used to more rapidly create slowness. In fact, if we look at companies in the same industry, we can compare the financial performance of companies that focus on speed of innovation versus companies that focus on continuous improvement. I should say focusing only on continuous improvement as opposed to speed of kaikaku or innovation. Significant innovation, large innovation. Here is a stock price climb of a company that focuses on speed of innovation. Their CEO has publicly communicated pace of innovation is all that matters in the long run. This is Tesla and that's Elon Musk. In the transcript excerpts from the investor earning call, you can see the management team does not use any internal financial modeling or financial metrics. They manage by measuring team performance and challenging the teams themselves to increase the efficiency and remove bottlenecks, which in turn allows the volume to increase. Their margin is entirely driven by automation. You can see the stock price shooting up. Now, when this picture was taken, the stock price has surged again. So maybe I should update it. Now, I have quotations here from investors saying, how do we model your future profit? What's your cost and profit per vehicle? And Musk says, we don't have targets. We simply measure the current state and measure that it's improving. And the investors got so frustrated because they couldn't make a predictive forward-looking 1 year, 3 year, 5 year waterfall plan. Musk doesn't have any waterfall planning. I didn't see any waterfall anywhere when I was working in any of the Musk companies. And then here, their CIO, also master of coin, it says, instead we measure at the team level. The teams see their own efficiency performance. How efficiently are they using money to improve the product? So if I'm in painting and I'm consuming money and I'm buying painting robots, paints, chemicals, throwaway goods, the rate at which I'm buying those things and innovating, consuming money and time to innovate, how does that translate into reduced defects in paint, higher perceived luster in paint, higher mirror, less orange peel, et cetera, et cetera. So teams see their own metrics. This is what allows them to be self-managing. And that's all automated, by the way. You see that in 5 seconds or less, usually much less, on big monitors in your smartphone. So you make your own financial trade-off decisions in team, and then the CIO and everyone looks across the entire company. That's how it's measured. So investors don't get Tesla. They're saying, well, what's your 5-year waterfall plan for increased profit? They're saying, we don't work that way. Instead, the teams see their own financial efficiency and improve it. And we can see all teams are trending improved. So the company's getting better. And it's already the most valuable car company in the world. Investors still just don't understand. That's grown by innovation, the most rapid market capitalization increase in history, in the history of publicly traded companies. We will now add a yellow line to compare this to a stock performance of a company focused only on continuous improvement, as opposed to kaikaku, breakthrough innovation. In this case, it's Toyota Motor Company, and a quotation from Ford Motor Company leadership. You can see Toyota's dead flat in terms of stock price. Publicly traded markets reward innovation. I mean, they can penalize innovation too, but you're flat if you're not growing. And in the product owner class, I summarized this by product owner mindset, saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. Your job as a product owner is to prioritize radical innovation as fast as your team is excited to do it with quality. And that's what ramps up growth. You can see the stock price difference in companies with these two strategies. Ford has the same strategy as Toyota. They outsource innovation. Ford's woes have mounted overseas as well. It faces slumping demand in China, its second largest market. Chief executive Jim Hackett at that time has said the number 2 US automaker at that time needs to move with greater speed. Continuous improvement, or traditional lean, increasing the throughput through a value add step, reducing a bottleneck, and not innovating radically the product itself, is not rewarded by the market on a publicly traded level. We see that when growth is the target, there is some industry evidence that speed is important. Speed of understanding what the customer wants, speed of executing that, speed of building quality in, speed of driving cost out, and speed of improving the customer perceived value. The Scrum framework matches this very well. Our part as Scrum Masters is to remove the impediments that increase the flow of customer visible value through the organization. The product owners are responsible for identifying the highest customer perceived value that the organization can build. And the developers are responsible for practicing engineering practices that let them increase quality while expanding the scope of what the team is capable of building quickly. As a Scrum Master, we also own the framework. the communication structure throughout the organization. Without this, decisions cannot be responsibly made within the teams, which increases pressure on management to make snap decisions with poor data, which decreases managerial effectiveness, which ultimately...
Sorry, time. Okay. So I on purpose, Joe and Bas, and not, I kept increasing the speed. I saw some notes over there. I placed mine. It takes a bit of time to adapt to the speed, but this also shows that we can move from regular speech and understanding to to at least 1.5 more and still understand what's happening, even if we have to do it twice. Anything in particular in there that you'd like to mention before we hit the second run in there, or ask? Because what I'll do is I'll take away your questions and I'll follow them back with Joe and also with the sources. Anything that you guys would like to mention, ask.
Yeah, two things. I mean, I noticed we're obviously using Tesla as like a baseline for, I guess, a baseline for success, or a baseline for like a model that works.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is especially on that bit about investors, about not having a waterfall or like a rainy day plan 5 years out, and how you sustain growth. I mean, it is one thing to be a company that's multiples of PE ahead of earnings and showing rapid growth and rapid iteration, but when the economic model or the economic environment shifts, it's often these growth companies that are the first on the chopping block with investors. I mean, how can you assure investors that you can navigate these fields when you say you don't plan for them?
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. Any more, Joe? Anything from your side?
Yeah, I saw a couple of comments out there about being able to assure investors that when the market shifts, that you're going to maintain pace. And I think that the point of Agile and Scrum is actually just that, to not just anticipate or not just react to market shifts, but actually to drive market shifts to the best ability possible. And not only, you're not just anticipating them, you are the innovative lead in creating those market shifts. And he's going to talk about resource management in a minute. I listened to this video earlier, and Joe's going to talk about how the agility, the ability to small group make decisions and manage a budget at a small team level actually builds that efficiency and sustainability into the process.
Okay, good point on the teams. At least something to rethink. From my side, it's more about deciding which areas need to be slow and which areas need to be fast. By definition, like I don't want to do an engineering process that is too fast. It needs to do things properly. But I do need to have a good procurement that ensures that I've got good quality material. So this speed is something that I'm really trying to understand a bit more in detail. And from you, Bas, do we have anything that you want to ask you?
I think his strategy is, for me, pretty clear, because he tries to navigate on the utility value, and there are mainly 4 kinds of utility. You got form utility, you have design innovation for the customer, place utility, where you can deliver, time utility. He tries to save time and increase innovation cycles. That's great. And he achieved it, and he got rewarded for this achievement. And basically, the ability to adapt fast in this business makes this company pretty powerful, in my perspective.
Okay, that's a fair comment. So let's hit 10 more minutes of this so that you guys I can give you some of context in the space resources. Okay, 10 more minutes. I'm going to go on mute. Let's listen to Joe and put some comments over there.
create slow companies. What I'm trying to say here is the structure of Scrum, having a product owner to prioritize and be allowed to operate some budget, a Scrum Master to execute basically lean, continuous improvement in the Scrum team, and remove frustrations, remove impediments, and the developers empowered to choose how they work, choose their technical architecture, choose their tool set. This as a structure, as a framework, and then scaling a company by just repeating this structure in a flat matrix, allows data to be shared product owner to product owner to make decisions on priority very quickly. And I'll talk much more about that later in the section on Metascrum. And Scrum Masters to share impediments team to team, which we'll see more in the section on Scrum of Scrums, or group impediment removal. This allows decisions to be made more responsibly and faster. It is the company communication, the framework of Scrum. So Scrum Masters, we're instantiating the framework of Scrum across as much of the company that's excited to try it. And we're increasing appetite. We're making it look fun so people want to try. And that creates the decision-making structure. And it actually creates a new funding structure too. And as we've just seen, slow may be a poor match if we want growth. Joe Justice has set up a certified Scrum Master class inside Tesla, and Ricardo Meriti has earned Scrum credentials inside Tesla. Tesla does not use the word Scrum often, only sometimes. However, the Tesla CEO Elon Musk is fond of saying Agile, and even now is finally implementing some of the sustainable pace practices of Scrum to reduce employee burnout. What about Toyota, which produces enormously successful products, but at a much slower pace? For Toyota, a fast-track project is 2.5 years long. A minor model change is a 2.5-year cycle typically. For Tesla, minor model changes happen about every 3 hours. Like, that's how radically different the speed of execution is. And if you want to see that, you can take the Agile Hardware Developer class with me. We'll practice that. You'll see exactly how it happens. And some of that's later in this book, in chapter 10, XM. So the pace is completely different of changes that the customer sees, like button placement or lack of button, noise deadening panels, different adhesives, a lighter substructure, like different metal. These are changes that in Toyota would be 2.5 years when fast-tracked, 5 to 7 years on a traditional model renewal cycle. In Tesla, there's about one of those every 3 hours. A fast-track project in Toyota would take 2 years, really 2.5, with minor model changes occurring every 2.5 to 3.5 years, versus Tesla making 27 changes to the Model S sedan alone in a single week. Is Toyota doomed in the long run by not having enough speed for the new world order? Joe has also worked with the management teams at Toyota North America in applying agility to develop the stamp and die operations of the 2019 Toyota Camry. The 2019 Camry is a first for Toyota with an all-aluminum roof in one of their production vehicles, which required many inspect and adapt sprints to create and increase quality and reliability. Joe also worked with the Scrum team, all team members and their management support, earning certified Scrum Master credentials, creating the financial approval system for Toyota North America, which is used for all significant funding decisions in the entire company. Joe then was brought to Toyota headquarters in Japan, and then to train every employee of the Toyota Autonomous Driving Team at TRIAD, which is now called Toyota Woven Planet, including the next CEO of Toyota, Daisuke Toyota, who is trained as a Scrum Master. The stated reasons for Toyota to train Scrum Masters is to improve happiness and quality of life at work, and to increase speed by establishing a rhythm of visible work. While Toyota is only now reorienting the company for high-speed delivery, as of this writing, products are still internally managed at Toyota City Global Headquarters as multi-year waterfall initiatives. Time will tell if Toyota pivots and increases speed of innovation fast enough to maintain their position as the largest company in the world by employer headcount. Definitely not by market capitalization anymore. A caveat, a warning, however. Both companies referenced above are enormously successful, Toyota and Tesla. Both have high customer satisfaction rates, and both are at or near the top now of product quality indexes. Saying speed is the only way to create and maintain an excellent, financially successful company is a stance that has counter evidence. However, if growth is the goal, we can make a much clearer case that speed is what drives growth. And if speed is important to drive growth, or for any other purpose, like rapid remediation of a problem, rapid solve for chip shortages, or any supply chain challenge, change, or problem, there is currently thousands of companies worth of evidence that Scrum is compatible with speed, if not the creator of speed. It is much more difficult to prove causality, that Scrum made a company double value. It's really hard to know that. Is Amazon so huge and so fast because they have small team sizes and push decision-making rights and process improvements into the teams? Or are they so huge and fast because they entered their market at the right time with genius executive vision? Likely some of both. And we can't prove the full stack teams owning most of their decisions and improvements is the majority reason that Amazon is so successful. We can't even prove that these full stack self-organizing teams are required for Amazon to be successful. We can observe that all 5 of the highest market capitalization companies on the planet have small team sizes as the primary working unit. These companies also stress and reinforce cross-functional or full stack skills, where in one team, you have the ability to design, produce, test, and solicit customer feedback directly in the same team. All these successful companies also have teams owning pieces with technical implementation and user-facing profit generation functions within the same team. As of this writing, those companies are Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. Tesla's coming up. There is a case that Saudi Aramco is more valuable than Apple without relying on small, cross-functional, mission-focused, customer-facing technical teams. And if this is true, then geography and politics can certainly create massive financial success as well. But while some of us cannot choose where resources are distributed in the world and what ownership and extraction rights are currently legal and which are not legal, we can choose our company structure. And with Scrum Masters, we have good evidence we can transform the entire business for speed. What about company size? Is speed less important for established older companies that employ hundreds or thousands of people globally? Robert Bosch GmbH is a global company employing more than 398,150 people as of their last reported headcount, which was 2019. It's 2021 now that I'm reading this, but that's the most recent data Bosch has reported. Here is a quotation from the chair of the board of Robert Bosch GmbH, Volkmar Denner, also performing as CEO of that company. Bosch. For Bosch, agility is crucial. It allows us to adjust to the increasing speed of change around us. Agility allows us to remain in a position as an innovation leader. Volkmar Denner, chair of the board and CEO, Robert Bosch GmbH. Joe Justice worked directly with Volkmar Denner at Bosch World Headquarters in Stuttgart. It started with Volkmar calling Joe Justice directly on his personal mobile phone. And I wrote, I was very surprised. Evidently, Volkmar's administration team had researched me and presented Volkmar with my mobile number and work history. Volkmar was very friendly and very familiar with my work and very clear. He said that an idea like Uber, an innovative, radical idea is how he pitched it, how he framed it, like Uber, would never survive in the current Bosch. He called it the Uber problem. He was saying Uber is good as an innovation idea. The problem is radical innovation like that doesn't survive in the current Bosch. So he called that the Uber problem. Their project approval process was too laborious and risk averse. Volkmar.
Time. So I'm gonna ask you guys to unmute, and I do have one of my main, and I tried to pitch this idea in other. No, let me go back. The clear setting of a team, and I think Joe took us to this, that is, he starts from the top gets trained, gets enforced, and does that, and then there is training in the team. That seems to be a way to do it, and then later there is a chapter called Switch to do this. But my concern is when he talked about Saudi Aramco, or whatever.
Saudi Arabia, Aramco.
Yes, exactly, Joe. So I do know the company, and we have in space a very particular case that is, like you guys seen, correct? This week, NASA just announced 14 flights to SpaceX for the same price as, I don't know, like half of the ones for the other company. And there are kind of half or a third, something like that, or a bit more. But my question is, in companies that have installed businesses, installed partnerships with the state, should we forget this method of working, or what's the idea? What do you feel it's less embarrassing to use instead of Scrum or Agile or Lean, or what kind of combination? Because regulatory does seem to change the rules in the game in here. And what should we do in terms of regulatory? So that's more of my question.
So regulatory cases don't really exist in strong especially internationally, but they don't really impact the space industry as heavily right now as they will in the future. The Boeing ULA alliance is heavily impacted by it because of the cost plus group, but SpaceX and other space interested companies are not nearly as deeply impacted by that. I do think that Boeing ULA could be very positively affected by Scrum or Lean/Agile, because the cost overruns and the propensity to use multiple state resources across the United States has really delayed and driven the cost of the SLS up exorbitantly higher than it should have been.
That's a good point. And I can tell you from Europe that there's been a big, man, for you to be able to put something up there in terms of spacecraft, or even, well, to launch it's just a problem. There are almost no alternatives. The public sector is not there. But any more comments, Melk or Bas, on these 10 minutes?
I think one of the this is this is just interspace company. I guess my question is from a, we keep hearing these rapid innovations, and quite, Model 3, if you were to buy a Model 3, or a year ago versus now, it's significantly different in terms of its upgraded capacity, performance, and such. without actually changing versions of the vehicle. And while that's great, it doesn't. My question is one, that creates a lot of employee and even consumer burnout. So how would you mitigate that? And the reason why I know it creates at least employee burnout is there's a lot of churn at Tesla when you go that fast. Whereas a company like Toyota doesn't have a lot of churn. They tend to have long-term career employees, which is why they're known for quality, because they have very established lines with the senior experience, which is more important, I guess, is my question.
Do you think there is a I'm going to call it a causal relationship between established quality and employee retention?
I think there is. I think
I
think there absolutely is. When we think of Toyota, I mean, I don't, we think of, the 4x4 pickup trucks that Top Gear blew up in a building that just works when it, when it goes. When I think of Yamaha versus Mercury for marine engines, like a Mercury engine will break when a feather lands on it, but a Yamaha you could store in a shed for 20 years through cold weather and it'll turn on the first time. Like when you look at the Japanese, when they come to the way that they innovate, the way that they operate in the market, you don't question their quality, you don't question their reliability. So I guess that's my question. I guess that's, an interesting observation that was drawn from the video comparing Toyota and Tesla.
So may I interject?
Yeah.
Hey, so I think one of the interesting things to keep in mind right now is that if we're talking about space, right, the entire space industry is in a kind of a new space era where innovation is key because the technologies we need to get and sustain ourselves in space they're not reliable, they're not established. And so I think the point in the industry pathway that we're at does require very agile, very flexible innovation. That's what SpaceX has brought to the table. Where I don't think there's necessarily a place in the market yet for a Toyota or a Yamaha. There will be, but I don't know that we're there yet.
Well, I guess my oh, sorry, and this is just because, and this isn't me, trying to be hypercritical. This is, this is me finding a lot of interest in the discussion and wanting to learn more. And we look at Soyuz, right? Which no one can launch on anymore. That was a workhorse, even though it hadn't really been updated since the 80s. It had an incredibly high reliability factor. And then you look at, Delta, you look at the Deltas from ULA and Ariane 5. And there's a reason why James Webb launched on Ariane 5. And the backup was a ULA mission, and it wasn't a Falcon 9 mission, was because Falcon 9 has a tendency to shake delicate payloads to death on its way up, being a very loud rocket. So I guess, there's a lot of new space. My company is new space. Hell, our mission assurance rating is 50% right now on our current R3s. But I guess there's we can say that there is some quality out there. It's expensive quality, but it does exist. The RS-25 engine is an amazing engine. It's an old engine. It's an amazing engine, though. I don't know.
Well, the B12s are coming. Okay, the B12s. Am I saying this right? From Blue Origin, they are coming up. Correct. Blue Origin is coming up with their new engines, and they work. Okay. And we both know the person that made them, Malk. So
we do.
We both know the person that made them. The program was running 3 years ago, so that's not unknown. And now they are coming up with probably a better version for that. So let's see how this follows. Guys, let's put 10 more minutes in. Joe, I saw the note. Bas, write down your stuff. Bas did an incredible job the other session here. He explained, thanks for the explanation on utility value. That was really, really cool. Let's see what we can pick up more from Joe's book.
needed an agile company. So here's where I need editing help. See, I'm trying to avoid gender pronouns because it's not important that Volkmar is a man. It's important that Volkmar is the person in a budgeting and decision-making position for an extremely large global company. So what Volkmar's decisions are affects work culture for hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and by a ripple effect, their families and even some of their families' friends. That's what's important. So editors, please help me remove where I miss gender pronouns. And if we say Volkmar too many times, let's say the CEO or chair of the board, as opposed to chairman or even chairperson. Let's just say chair of the board. Okay. And that's part of what I mean by leading from an emerging future. Many people don't mind gender pronouns now, but imagine 40 years in the future. If it's a more gender equitable world where people are paid the same regardless of gender, like that's not a factor you can use to determine salary, which you can now. There's a gender pay gap worldwide. Some cultures are much larger than others. So if we imagine 40 years in the future, and let's say it's a good 40 years in the future, and there's no pay gap by gender anywhere in the world anymore, that would be awesome. Then it looks silly to read an old book where they say he, she, chairman, and every once in a while chairwoman from 40 years ago. That looks silly. It'd be a weird book. So Leading from the Emerging Future by Otto Scharmer is thinking as if you are in the future, like 40 years in the future. And then you make leading decisions now within your sphere of influence to bring you towards that more positive future. So I want this book, if I can, to make sense if that good future that I like comes true, where gender is just a non-issue when it comes to pay. So editing folks, if anyone tweets at Joe Justice and helps me edit, please help me catch all gendered pronouns and let's write it so it's smooth and easy to read, even without bothering to say if someone's a man or a woman or gender agnostic or prefers not to identify or non-binary. Like, just skip that entirely and just say Volkmar needed an agile company to create a faster pace of innovation. I did it again. CEO said they were working with Tesla, and the parts of Bosch delivering to Tesla had seen agility and very fast hardware design, develop and test cycles. Their first interaction, as far as I'm aware, was making the steering rack for the Model S, and that's a Bosch part. And the Bosch teams were shocked. Tesla wanted an updated steering rack in volume delivery, in production, every week. The design cycle never ended and got locked, and they were shocked. How do we do this? And they did. In Bosch, they did, and they delivered updated steering racks for the Model S in volume production in batch every week. And more people in Bosch said, well, can more of us work this way? This is way more fun. It's way more effective. We have a radical pace of innovation compared to traditional waterfall project planning. So that started to get people talking. And I met the Scrum Master of the steering rack team in Stuttgart. They were phenomenal. I have a picture of me with him, and either he or I or both of us are holding one of the Tesla Model S steering racks. Volkmar said the rest of Bosch was not yet performing this way. The CEO's decision was to eliminate personal performance incentives for all of the 500 company's top executives. Volkmar is a strong leader. This would be replaced with a percent of total company profit that top executives would receive as a bonus, meaning top executives were no longer incentivized to grow and reduce risk in just their little piece, but were incentivized to find whatever grew all of Bosch the most quickly with an acceptable level of risk. Need editing help, please tweet at Joe Justice and help me. Volkmar then asked me to present to these 500 top executives, including all the board of Bosch and the board above the board. Volkmar wanted me to share about Wikispeed, my small but global car company. The CEO requested I surprise the leadership team in the presentation of those 500 people, that this agile way of working may very quickly produce a competitor from a sector they had not been tracking or not been even aware existed. That's what Volkmar asked me to do. The chair of the board also asked me to work in small groups with every single executive to explain in more detail how this agile way of working is managed. Following this, sections of Bosch, up to 4,000 employees at a time, switched to Agile. Some sections of the company release newly designed and tested hardware and software every single week. I'll show some pictures of sprint reviews later in the book. Some of these groups of up to 4,000 people had no managers, only product owners to prioritize and Scrum Masters to remove impediments to speed of flow. This is what I mean by an Agile company structure. This is one example of an Agile company structure. You also want open space and mob. For details of what happens inside a sprint at Bosch, see Chapter 13, Sprint. Finally, it is useful to see speed as is a top driver of virtually all the competitors and partners of these companies. Toyota. We must destroy the Toyota way. What I strongly felt was the difficulty of innovating when times are normal. We can identify things that will further accelerate to promote changes. When you look at a product, going to the actual sites, going to Gemba, that's the Japanese word for the place work is physically done, which is ideally where the work is also planned, but it's not where you just plan work. That wouldn't be called the Gemba. So a planning room is never Gemba. You could plan on the line, so you can plan at the Gemba, but Gemba means the place where the product is actually made. So for software development, the Gemba is actually your laptop or your desktop. What is important is to fuel the change point. Akio Toyoda, CEO of Toyota Motor Corporation. All of these quotes from the CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyoda is the current CEO, are saying the CEO's job is to make innovation come faster. That's a CEO level responsibility. In fact, I love the last quotation the most. He says it's to find where change is happening and accelerate it. I love that. So you're not like creating innovation or making all the innovation yourself. As a CEO, you're looking for where it is happening and you're fueling it. And I'll rephrase that for Scrum Master and say Scrum Master's job is to remove the frustrations to where you find innovation. And that increases the speed through the value stream map of innovation, which at the heart of it is really all a Scrum Master does after we instantiate the repeating structure of Scrum. Joe Justice was brought in to train all staff at Toyota Research Advanced Development, now called Toyota Woven Planet. And now called Toyota Woven Planet, which is the Agile Center for the new Toyota. It's a huge, beautiful building in downtown Tokyo. It's right by the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. It's absolutely gorgeous. Every single person at this site, and in many of the suppliers, including Denso, were trained as a Scrum Master, and many were also trained as product owners by me. Akio Toyoda visited, the CEO visited to celebrate, and the ostensible next CEO, Daisuke Toyoda, was installed as an employee at TRID and trained by Joe Justice as a Scrum Master. A former Google employee was hired to operate as TRID's CEO. In this way, Toyota trains its next CEO in Agile working to be able to lead all of Toyota with agility when they take the reins in the company, probably in another 8 years, maybe 7. The homepage for TRID at the time of this writing reads Silicon Valley Agility, Japanese Master Craftsmanship. That really should be craftspersonship, but I didn't get to write their logo. They may have changed the logo now that they're Woven Planet. Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Group is becoming more transparent, more agile, more efficient, more innovative, and more profitable. That is what counts moving forward. Then, the big questions are we fast enough? If we continue at our current speed, it's going to be very tough. Volkswagen CEO, Herbert Dice. Now, if you're helping me edit, see how Microsoft Word in American English doesn't recognize Dice, Herbert Dice's last name, and many times it will autocorrect to DIES, Dice, which would be very impolite to say to Herbert. That would mean we didn't want him to live. So when you import this document to help me edit, if you do, please check Herbert's name. Many times Word has autocorrected without even asking every instance of Dice to Dies. So after you import, please check and switch it back if you have to, so we can be respectful to Herbert. Paul Tacken spent years on assignment. Oh, also same of Daisuke Toyoda and Akio Toyoda. Their names are spelled Tyoda. Yeah, Akio Toyoda. Their names are spelled with a D, and the company is spelled with a T. Microsoft Word, which I'm using now in English, will autocorrect Toyoda to Toyota. So if you import these documents, please also check the Toyota names and see if it's referring to the company or Akio or Daisuke.
Okay, time in here. And this was a bit more of editing, but what I really wanted to ask you guys was kind of what I was placing on the board, is that it's very clear that it starts from the top and then builds the teams down using the Scrum methodology. The concern is that, as explained in here, for Bosch, you have a very collaborative work environment, a very supportive work environment, and things happening as people are doing. And how many places, and I know a couple of them that work like this, okay? My current work, we are very, although we are going to build a rover in Rio Tinto, and we are designing it from home now, but we are very, very collaborative. How do you see this happening across the corporations? And you don't need to, if you don't talk about yours, don't, but just focusing on what are the key constraints, because that's what I want to ask Joe, as what if this happens, what would be the source? I think this is making sense. At least for me, it makes sense. Like, if I don't have the CEO helping me out at the line because he doesn't want to be there, or someone does not want him to be there, or whatever, if people don't trust, what should you do? Right? That's for me. That's a key thing in here. What do you see? Do you see any other things to be asked or notes that you want to bring in? Ask you guys to unmute. Joe, Bas, Malk.
I think one of the challenges you're going to come across is that people like power, right? So whenever you have a person who's an executive or a middle manager and they're getting paid to manage larger teams, their pay is commensurate with their responsibility. When you start breaking teams down into, true Scrum, as Joe gets into there, one of the things that's a consequence of that is that a product owner doesn't necessarily have authority at a higher level than just their Scrum team. So the way Tesla is organized and SpaceX is organized is that it's very flat. You have the CEO, and then you have product owners, and then you have Scrum teams, these full stack Scrum teams. So I think that's going to end up being a challenge to the way that our hierarchical society is developed now.
Yeah, I'm adding this one in your place, Joe. Okay, because I think that's a really good one. How do we move from years of hierarchical thinking to less hierarchical? That's going to be a big challenge. And any other comments, or can we hit the accelerator? Okay, I'm going to place this on. Bas, feel free to comment. 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we go.
Paul Tacken spent years on assignment at a global company in Wolfsburg, Germany, and has many anecdotes about traditional German and global manufacturing operations. Paul Tacken is my best friend. He leads with his heart in a business savvy way. I have never met anyone who comes across as so soulful, so heartful, so loving, wanting the company to be the most loving, conducive to excellent health and contributing to a better environment, better future, who's able to do that with business savvy and excellence, with just zero compromise between excellent business execution and loving the future direction the company is now going. Paul is so good at that. And in many ways, he's my emotional compass. When I'm confused about a product owner decision to make for a large group that affects many people's lives or big investments, I'll often talk to Paul because he meshes business success and leading to an emergent future perfectly. Paul talks about leadership hiring Scrum Masters into their companies. Scrum Masters establish a culture of fast action and self-decision making. This empowerment creates gentle and respectful pushback from even junior office workers when they're asked to wait or submit documents for approval from outside their team. Now, what I'm trying to say here is after Scrum Masters are installed, so in this case, leadership installed Scrum Masters. So it was a leadership decision. Let's get more agile. They hired Scrum Masters. The Scrum Masters coached everyone. If someone asks you to wait, give gentle pushback. Do I really need to wait? What can I do so I don't have to wait? Or if I'm asked to submit a document for approval and I don't get to make the approval myself, I should at least politely ask, may I approve this and not wait for approval or not submit a document for approval? This polite and constant pushback helps start to where responsible, increase decision-making rights and reduce wait states from the inside. So it's a top-down mandate in this case that Paul was teaching me about to instantiate Scrum Masters who coach the organization to make people not tolerate or be less tolerant of wait states and approvals. Why don't I get to approve it? I'm the one doing it. It's called decision-making rights. So Management 3.0 formalizes that very well. Well, now it's bottom up. These people coached by the Scrum Masters are told that it's acceptable and even expected in this company. And part of the reason that's so important in a company like Volkswagen is they had Dieselgate as a scandal. And many regulating bodies accused Volkswagen very rightly, and Volkswagen admitted guilt in this, saying, why do you have a culture where no one felt comfortable blowing the whistle? No one felt comfortable reporting the illegal behavior. And Volkswagen executives took that to heart. They thought about that and said, why do we have a culture where you're terrified to say no if your boss asks you to do something? And you're terrified to say, I think that's unethical. Why don't these people feel empowered? And they turned to agility to help increase decision-making rights where people felt empowered so they could avoid another Dieselgate. Someone, even a very junior level employee, would feel comfortable saying to their boss, no, that's illegal, which is a complete change in the yes, boss culture they had before. So that's why empowerment was so important in decision-making rights. Team members became more aware that their team produces an entire product or service without external approvals or wait states. Scrum Masters also coach executives on the most effective leadership methods when now funding thousands of Agile teams. Joe Justice was invited as the keynote speaker for the first Agile Automotive Conference, and there collaborated with passionate Agilists from Bros, the second largest automotive supplier in Europe, Ford Europe, Volkswagen Group, and their subcompanies such as Porsche and Bugatti, BMW and Daimler, Porsche and Bugatti, and separate large companies, BMW and Daimler. And also the large companies. So I don't want it to look like BMW and Daimler are subcompanies of Volkswagen. That'd be impolite to BMW and Daimler. Joe later was invited back to meet with the CEO of MAN Truck and Bus, a Volkswagen company, and have breakfast with regional executives from the BMW group, where they discussed their company-wide Agile transformation ambitions. The goals for all these Agile transformations were increased speed, increased innovation, rapid change, and risk reduction through quality and transparency, while they deployed speed at scale. All these companies hired Scrum Masters. The case I want to make here is the one goal is faster pace of innovation. And Scrum is super simple. There are only 11 rules. And Scrum Masters, by the time you're done with this book, you'll be super comfortable with those 11 rules in many different scenarios. So you can walk into a lot of different companies and help set up Scrum because it's simple. There's just 11 rules. And Scrum is really elegantly minimalist. By itself, if you actually do the 11 things, it increases systemically, sprint after sprint, the pace of innovation and reduces the sprint length. It gives you faster pace of innovation, which is the one goal. Tesla. Pace of innovation is all that matters in the long run. Elon Musk, CEO Tesla Inc., and CEO Space Exploration Technologies Corp., better known as SpaceX, and CEO Neuralink Corporation, and CEO The Boring Company. As we mentioned previously, well, now's a good time to say this. So Elon does a trick to help compartmentalize these companies Elon's running to avoid context switching loss, and it's to group them by day or by half day. So Elon will have segments of time that are just Boring Company, and don't interrupt Elon with SpaceX information unless it's an emergency. Then the next box is Tesla, the next box is Neuralink, etc. The size of those time boxes is dynamically reallocated depending on where is the bottleneck. And the bottleneck to Elon's ultimate goal, which is a superior future where robots do physical work and people choose if they want to do physical work, and there's no disease, RNA vaccines are available, and we live out among the stars, etc., etc. Elon has these grand goals, which I'm a fan of. I actually think they're all, or almost all, amazing. So looking at the value stream map to that goal, like any product owner does, Elon then looks, where is the bottleneck? And that's where he spends the most time. In fact, that's where he sleeps. Elon doesn't own a house. Actually, I think he still owns one, but he uses it for company events. Elon sleeps in the factory, whichever factory is the bottleneck towards that grand vision. So right now, as I'm doing this audiobook, Elon's sleeping in Boca Chica, Texas at Starbase, which is a SpaceX facility, making the largest rocket ever made by humans. And the largest time box is allocated to SpaceX right now, and particularly the Starship rocket system. As we mentioned previously, Joe Justice set up a certified Scrum Master seminar inside Tesla. Joe later joined Tesla as a direct employee after this book manuscript was completed. So I'd already written this book. I actually intentionally rushed to finish before joining Tesla so I could then check my understanding in version 2 of the book, which is starting to happen now. After folks help me edit, please help me edit. Joe operated Agile at Tesla from the company global headquarters, we call it the mothership, in Fremont, California, USA. During publishing of this book, there was just enough time to add this excerpt because I republished from version 1.0 to 1.1, like while I was at Tesla, and 1.2 just after, something like that. Tesla, inside, like SpaceX, is incredibly fast without much hierarchy. Anyone can talk directly to Elon Musk, the CEO. And if anyone tries to prevent talking to Elon, this is grounds for them to be fired immediately. That keeps the company very flat, very accessible, and very nimble. There is no chief role of anything in Tesla, as that would not be flat enough for the speed they achieve. There's no chief product owners in Tesla or chief scrum masters. That'd be too slow. There's a lot of agile scaling frameworks, and I view them as a...
Okay, time. And I want to use the last 7 minutes because I want to assign some homework for myself and for you guys to do the rest of the video. The chapter is almost finished, but for me, the important part in here is one, because I also want to take you guys through the resources on dust and dust mitigation strategies, and some of the things that I think are really phenomenal, and they are free to collaborate and use. And I think you'll get, to be fair, a lot of value on understanding a bit more on space dust and why is it stopping us, and what's out there that you can use, and have a good discussion with the folks that are actually doing it. But regarding this piece, the last 10 minutes that we've seen, there is a bit of promotion, of course. So Joe is speaking about, I think, the validity of the system of the Scrum teams. But most important for me, at least, has been the fact that it keeps on focusing on small, nimble teams and the ability to have the CEO always together and the product owner. I find that extremely hard to implement, but I see the point in the speed and the ability for people to communicate. It's could be wonderful or it could be dreadful. So I think I'm in between these two fields. I don't know, I'd like to collect some comments before we start wrapping up.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the idea of the agile small team is an empowering move for that small team lead, or for the product owner, right? And for each of the people on the team, the full stack. There is an ownership there where they handle every element of the product development through customer face side. And I think that if you're empowering the small team effectively and giving them ownership, and ownership goes two ways, right? So a product owner needs to understand that they are responsible for the success of the product, but they're also responsible for the failure of the product and to innovate around that failure. So I think that communicating that to your small teams is an important part of how you implement Scrum.
I'm more concerned with one thing in here, that it's a cultural change. That is, when you submit something for someone to approve, that we need to infuse from the bottom up the ability to say, I can approve it, or I've done it, I think it's okay. We don't need to go several layers. You see what I mean? And I think that's a hard thing to do, a really hard thing to take away that mindset. I don't know what you guys think, but that for me is like, this is going to upset a lot of people.
Well, it comes back to that power statement that I made on the last break, which was that people like to have that power. We can say we're altruistic all we want, but at the end of the day, a leader wants to have control, and delegation has always been one of the most difficult tasks for leadership to really master.
Yeah. Okay. And anyone else would like to add any comments in there? I'm sharing the link where we are to finish later. It takes you around 5 minutes later. Malk, any questions? Anything to comment? Bas, anything to comment before I take you to the resources of Space Lunar Dust?
No, go on. Great. The approach of splitting the ownership in small teams seems to be highly efficient. And I think it's a really great solution, a great approach, but it's hard to implement through such a huge organization.
Okay, thanks. I'll take your comments. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes on Space Dust, and that's what you need to know about Space Dust to start the conversation, okay? Dust is going to be the environmental problem for future state missions, both inside and outside the habitats. And this was actually when Jack Harrison Smith, the astronaut, was coming out of a lunar walk, and the guy was full of dirt. Okay, not let's call dirt, but it was actually dusty, okay? So I collected in here a couple of things. who's doing research in here, I would definitely recommend, this is one of the best suggestions I've seen, but if you go to this group in here, the LSIC, I'm currently so many times in their meetings. You have fantastic amount of resources in there that you can use. And so, but you do need to log in. If you need help, let me know, because it's a question of talking with Andrea. So this is a fabulous report, not the workshop report, this one in here. The planetary spacecraft dust properties mitigation and the impact of lunar dust in human exploration. Really interesting one. The second resource that I would like, so I've divided this in who's doing research on it, pretty straightforward, and who is who, okay? So actually who's doing stuff besides myself, okay? Besides Colorado School of Mines, but you've got in here many of the folks that are working on this. Max Arrow is obviously there. Honeybee Robotics, for some reason, is not in here, and it should. If you need a contact, let me know. Oh, it's here, yes, okay, of course. Honeybee. Someone else to talk that is really cool, he publishes a lot. Let's go up. Oh. Okay, offline research is a cool one to look at as well. So good page to understand who's out there. But more important, later you guys want to look into, all of these are not only the directory of all the resources, but we also have, so we also have a location for things like what's up there in terms of funding, if you want to know more, and courses, okay? If you need a course, the Colorado School of Mines have a fantastic course on space resources, takes you around 3 days, you do a workshop and you get really an interesting, I was in their cohort last year, so it's a cool one. Last thing in here, essentially the standard to follow, if you want to look into that with more detail, is this one in here. It's the NASA standard for how to, and I would definitely ask you guys to read this paper from Creel Neal regarding coping with dust strategies. It has a lot of practical examples. And in here, guys, that's it. That's the summary, okay? Kirsten John, PhD, these guys made a brutal summary on what's the dust problem. You'll find a beautiful thing on electrostatics and how does it affect the way that we work in space and some of the strategies that have been happening. In my case, for the rover, we still don't know exactly what's the dust mitigation strategy, but we are working on it on our architectural design. And that's what I wanted to give you guys regarding the dust side. Next session, we'll work on other capabilities of the Moon environment. If you have any questions until there, please let me know. Any comments before we depart?
No, this is a very interesting time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Excellent conversation.
Okay, guys. Bas, any comments? Or
Thank you.
Okay, speak
No,
soon.
go on.
I'll share everything with everyone, okay? I'll share all the links.
I'm a newbie.
Good job, everyone. Next session, we'll have systems architecture and how to do that for a spacecraft. You'll enjoy it. Speak soon. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me invited. It was a great conversation.